Mary, could you really be in this town?
In the world of video games, kids, true genre-defining experiences come few and far between. Often, these benchmark releases inspire waves of imitators. Some capture the spark of what made these masterpieces so memorable, and most end up as cash grabs on a popular genre. Few games have inspired such imitation as the Silent Hill series. Provocative, psychological, and unafraid to tackle controversial content, this series is renowned for preying on player expectations, toying with perceptions of space and time and awareness. Many lesser games have made an attempt at reproducing the same magic, including later games in the same series. Silent Hill 2 is singled out by fans and critics to be the best of the bunch. Hailed as one of the scariest games of all time, the story tackles the subjects of abuse, both emotional and physical, grief, and punishment. It does so in a very uniquely Silent Hill manner, in which nothing is real, and every step the player takes moves them closer to an abyss of terror. The game features a memorable cast. Each character has distinct motivations and reasons for their journey to the town, but each person is also shrouded in mystery at the same time. After all, their purpose is not to tell their stories, but to enhance the journey of the protagonist, James Sunderland. While at first it seems a given that these characters are all real, it is my belief that they are, in fact, manifestations of the town in order to provide extra torment for the protagonist. And this is a bit of a difficult pill to swallow at first glance, but the evidence is present throughout the game. Now, before we dive into the reason for this theory, kids, let's first examine the story and setting of the game itself in order to make sense of what is to come. At this point, kids, I would like to point out that as much as I love this game, I am kind of on a tight schedule, so I wasn't about to play it 4 times in a row, just so I could capture all the footage of every single ending. So I resorted to tracking down some footage off of YouTube, and I found the channel of Mr. Andy P321, who hasn't uploaded anything in 8 years. But I'm still gonna link down to his channel below so that you can see for yourself where I got the footage from. Alright, we good, kids? Cool, now shut up and eat your popcorn so I can talk to you about adult stuff.
In my restless dreams, I see that town, Silent Hill. You promised you'd take me there again someday, but you never did. Well, I'm alone there now, in our special place, waiting for you.
At the beginning of Silent Hill 2, we hear these words, the opening of a letter sent to James Sunderland by his wife Mary. Now, this is, of course, an impossible letter, as James quietly states that Mary has been dead for years, victim of a terminal illness. And yet, despite knowing this, James has come to the town of Silent Hill in order to understand how such an impossible letter could exist, and whether or not his late wife could be truly waiting for his arrival. What follows is an exploration of the psyche unlike any in gaming. James follows his path from the outskirts of Silent Hill into the town proper, discovering an abandoned urban environment. A town shrouded in fog, full of dilapidated buildings and broken roads. Forced to navigate through buildings rather than around, James makes his way through an apartment complex, a hospital, an underground prison, and finally across the town lake to a hotel where Mary appears to be waiting for him. Each place he visits holds clues to what is happening both to the town and to his fragile psyche, in the form of strange creatures and the humans he meets. At the end of his quest, James discovers that Mary was never waiting for him. Instead, he recovers the repressed memory that he had killed her rather than let her illness eat her alive. James has been searching for punishment for his actions this entire time, which has been granted by the strange power of the town itself. Established in the previous game, the town of Silent Hill has the ability to warp reality around those who are drawn towards it, people who are usually tormented by something horrific in their past. How this came to be is never really explained, only hinted at, particularly with the information that the land used to be a sacred place to the native tribes that used to inhabit it. Previously, it had manifested a scenario based on the pain and suffering of a powerful psychic girl who had been horribly burned as a part of the ritual of the town cult. In the case of James, Silent Hill has taken James's need for punishment and provided it tenfold, but because James is unsure of exactly what he feels he deserves, it also provides multiple angles with which to torture him. Even the outcome of the game itself is open-ended. Based on the player's actions during the story, one of 4 endings will commence, with a finale befitting James's decisions. None of the endings are considered the true ending by the developers, leaving players to define for themselves what should or should not happen to James. These decisions are based solely on items and characters James interacts with. Each decision is subtle, never overt, and first playthroughs often end with James leaving the town in peace. But each finale is very specific, and I believe is represented by each of the 4 characters James meets in the town. Let's take a look at these each one by one, examining them thoroughly. As mentioned before, Silent Hill brings to life manifestations of the character's psyche. In Silent Hill 2, James confronts monsters that resemble a skinless human wearing a fleshy straitjacket, mannequins, which are 2 sets of legs on top of each other, sexualized zombie nurses with large breasts and disfigured faces, and the most recognizable antagonist of all the games in the series, Pyramid Head. Pyramid Head is an image of an executioner wearing a large triangular helmet and a butcher's apron made of skin. At first, Pyramid Head is seen sexually assaulting 2 of the monsters before turning its attention to James, stalking him throughout the course of the story. Pyramid Head is ultimately revealed to be the singular manifestation of James's need for punishment, for someone to specifically punish him for his crimes. But out of all of these monsters, there is one creation of the town that rests above them, for the purpose of torturing James. And this brings us to our first character, Maria. As James makes his way through Silent Hill, the first place he thinks could be Mary's special place is Rosewater Park, where the 2 of them had shared intimate walks during their vacation. But instead, James finds Maria.
Mary? No, you're not.
Do I look like your girlfriend?
No, my late wife. I can't believe it. You could be her twin. Your face, your voice, just your hair and clothes are different.
My name is Maria. I don't look like a ghost, do I? See? Feel how warm I am?
You're really not Mary.
I told you, I'm Maria.
Sorry. I was confused.
Where are you going?
I'm looking for Mary. Have you seen her?
Didn't you say she died?
Oh yeah, 3 years ago. But I got a letter from her. She says she was waiting in our special place.
And that's here? Anyway, I haven't seen her. Is this your only special place?
Well, there's the hotel too, I guess. The one on the lake? I wonder if it's still there.
The Lakeview Hotel? Yeah, it's still there. So, the hotel was your special place, huh? I'll bet it was. Don't get so mad. I was just joking. Anyway, it's not that way. It's this way.
You're coming with me?
You were gonna just leave me?
No, but...
With all these monsters around?
No, I just...
I'm all alone here. Everyone else is gone. I look like Mary, don't I? You loved her, right? Or maybe you hated her.
Don't be ridiculous.
So it's okay?
Yeah, fine.
As the player guides James through the town, Maria follows at a decently close pace. Not quite as fast as James, but not so slow that she can't keep up. The artificial intelligence designed for Maria allows the player to not worry if Maria is nearby or not when running from or fighting monsters. In other games, the mechanics would force the player to worry about their companions, but not so Maria. She always catches up. And no matter how far away she is when James goes through a door into a new environment, Maria is immediately waiting on the other side. This ties into the theme of Maria needing James to take care of her in the story. While searching Brookhaven Hospital for clues, Maria begins to cough and takes a couple of pills from an orange prescription bottle.
James. Wait a minute. I'm kinda tired. It's just a hangover.
You should rest.
So comfy.
I'm gonna go look for her. For Laura. I'll be back as soon as I can.
Circumstances keep them separated, and as the hospital is twisted and warped through the power of the town, James finds he's unable to go back to find her. Luckily, they bump into each other once more.
James!
Mary? Oh, Maria. It's you. I thought you were... Sorry. Anyway, I'm glad you're alive.
Anyway? What do you mean, anyway? You don't sound very happy to see me. I was almost killed back there. Why didn't you try to save me? All you care about is that dead wife of yours. I've never been so scared in my whole life. You couldn't care less about me, could you?
No, I
Then
just...
stay with me. Don't ever leave me alone. You're supposed to take care of me. So, what about Laura? Did you find her?
Yeah, but... She ran away.
We've got to find her.
But their reunion is short-lived. As they attempt to flee the hospital, Pyramid Head pursues them down a narrow corridor that leads to an elevator.
Open up!
Now, grief-stricken at watching Maria die, the woman who looks exactly like his late wife, James is forced to press on alone, somberly. It's telling that as he exits the hospital, the town has changed from day to night, enveloped now in darkness as well as fog. Much to James's surprise, however, Maria is not done with the story at this point. After leaving the hospital, James attempts to find a way to cross Toluca Lake to get to Lakeview Hotel on a nearby island, and find the last potential special place. In doing so, he discovers a hidden entrance to a prison underground beneath the Silent Hill Historical Society. Questing through the prison, James enters a room to discover Maria sitting on a chair inside one of the cells.
You're alive! Maria, I thought that thing killed you. Are you hurt bad?
Not at all, silly.
Maria? That thing, it stabbed you. There was blood everywhere.
Stabbed me? What do you mean?
It chased us to the elevator, and then
James, what are you talking about?
just before, don't you remember?
James, honey, did something happen to you? After we got separated in that long hallway? Are you confusing me with someone else? You were always so forgetful. Remember that time in the hotel?
Maria?
You said you took everything, but you forgot that videotape we made. I wonder if it's still there.
How do you know about that? Aren't you Maria?
I'm not your Mary.
So, you're Maria?
I am. If you want me to be.
All I want from you is an answer.
It doesn't matter who I am. I'm here for you, James. See? I'm real. Don't you want to touch me?
I don't know.
Come and get me. I can't do anything through these bars.
Okay. Stay right there. I'll be there soon.
James finds a way around to unlock the cell, but by the time he discovers this path, Maria's body is on the cell's bed, dead once again. James forces himself to move on. After reaching the Lakeview Hotel and discovering the videotape Maria mentioned, James sits down and watches it. It's this point in the game where both James and the player are confronted with the truth.
Are you taping again? Come on. I don't know why, but I just love it here. It's so peaceful. You know what I heard? This whole area used to be a sacred place. I think I can see why. It's too bad we have to leave. Please promise you'll take me again, James.
All around the hotel are various video and audio cues that imply the nature of James and Mary's relationship during her final days. A tense, abusive atmosphere in which Mary constantly lashed out at James in anger due to her own negative self-worth, only to adopt a pleading, loving tone after fighting. James, bitter from years of slow decay and frustration, opted to end Mary's pain. Was it a selfish act or an altruistic one? The story leaves that to the player to decide. James is shown to be in torment over his actions, the memory of which he either repressed on his own or was repressed by the power of the town. Either way, his journey has led to this moment, and Maria has one final appearance in the story to make.
I was weak. That's why I needed you. Needed someone to punish me for my sins. But that's all over now. I know the truth. Now it's time to end this.
After facing down the Pyramid Heads, who execute themselves now that their purpose is complete, James then climbs to the top of the hotel to discover one of two outcomes: Mary or Maria, waiting for his arrival, and depending on his actions during the game, his ultimate fate. If during the course of the game the player has spent significant time with Maria, including returning to the rooms she's either sleeping in or being held in to check on her, and if the player is careful to ensure Maria takes no damage from the monsters of the town, James will get the Maria ending, which is one of two endings out of the 4 that directly relate to one of the other characters. This is the only ending in which James actually finds Mary at the top of the hotel.
Mary, I'm sorry it took so long.
Didn't you want to see me?
Yes, I wanted to see you. Even an illusion of you. That's why I came here.
It's not true, is it? You killed me.
I couldn't watch you suffer.
Don't make excuses, James. I know I was a burden on you. You must have hated me. That's why you got rid of me.
It's true. I may have had some of those feelings. It was a long 3 years. I was tired.
That's why you needed this Maria person? James, do you really think I could ever forgive you for what you did?
Mary transforms into a monster, forcing James to kill her in response. After he does, he returns to Rosewater Park where he first met Maria, to embrace her once more and leave town together.
You killed Mary again?
That wasn't Mary. Mary's gone. That was just something Maria? Maria?
What, James?
I want you. I want you with me.
Are you sure?
Come on. Let's get out of here.
What about Mary?
It's okay. I have you.
As they walk back to James's car, the rest of Mary's letter is read aloud. Mary details her sadness at her stay in hospice care, her sorrow for being so terrible and mean towards James, and assures him that their relationship was something she cherished over the years. She tells James that he had made her happy, and for James to live for himself and do what he needs to do to live. After the letter is read, James and Maria arrive at his car.
Do something about that cough.
Through the events of the game, it is heavily implied that Maria is a construct of the town's powers, an idealized version of what James had wished Mary had been. Despite sensing this, James still chooses her in this ending. After his initial quest to find Mary, James, it seems, did not hold enough devotion to his late wife to see it through to the end. He spent so long during Mary's sickness, frustrated at being unable to have his life, that with the attractive option of Maria, he has once again taken an easier way out, a way that he feels he deserves to have. Yet as the final moments foreshadow a similar fate for Maria as Mary had, it seems as though the town is not as merciful as it might appear. What further fleshes out this idea is a bonus chapter from the game that initially came out with the Xbox version before being added to the PlayStation re-release. Titled Born from a Wish, the player assumes the role of Maria before she meets up with James at Rosewater Park. During the short chapter, Maria awakens in the local club Heaven's Night, unsure of where she is or how she got there. Noting that the town is empty except for the monsters that roam the streets, she makes her way across town until she finds a large, empty mansion, whose sole occupant is the mysterious man named Ernest Baldwin. Ernest refuses to show himself, only communicating from behind a door, but once Maria discovers evidence that a child lived in the house as well, does Ernest tell the truth, that his daughter, Amy, died in the house when she was 7, while preparing a birthday present for her father. But Ernest has a hope for what he calls a miracle, something we'll discuss in a later section. What's important for Maria is that Ernest warns her about James well before she encounters him, telling her that he's a bad man and that he's looking for the her that isn't her. Maria doesn't know who James is at first, but somehow gains a memory of him, then telling Ernest he's wrong. A similar moment happens when Maria is exploring the house. She finds a teddy bear in a child's room and thinks to herself that Laura would like this bear, but then realizes that she doesn't know who Laura is. In both cases, we can see the town's power influencing her, placing memories and ideas into her head that will help shape her decision-making and personality. One of the points of Born from a Wish seems to show that Maria, as a manifestation, is still raw, malleable, coming together into what the town wants her to be, even rejecting the notion that she was created by the town, cutting off Ernest just as he begins to infer this possibility. But what we discover is that Ernest was never real. When the door finally opens, it opens to an empty room. Maria was talking to a ghost. Or, perhaps, to the voice of the town itself. After this, her sense of loneliness and isolation come to a head, even going so far as to put a gun to her head as her only way out. However, she tosses the gun away and walks towards Rosewater Park, speaking James's name aloud, seeking him out. She has been formed to completion by the town now, and her only desire is to be with James. With the confirmation that Maria was manifested by the town in accordance with James's unconscious desires, this now opens the door to the possibility that the other characters in the game have also been manifested by the town in order to aid in James's torment. What's different about Maria is that it is explicitly stated in the game that she was created by the town, where it is naturally assumed by the player that the other characters are in fact real and have been called to the town for various reasons. Now that we have some details of the plot and the understanding of how these manifestations work out of the way, let's focus on the individual details of the other characters in the game. One of the larger roles in the game, despite having little actual screen time, is the 8-year-old girl Laura. James first meets Laura in the apartment complex shortly before seeing Pyramid Head for the first time.
Ow! Hey, wait! Damn it.
In many ways, Laura is a metaphorical hook on the town's fishing pole, baiting James into journeying deeper into the town to discover the truth behind Mary's letter. After leaving the apartments, James finds Laura in an alley out back, perched on a high wall.
You! It was you, wasn't it? You're the one who stepped on my hand.
I don't know. Maybe I did.
What's a little girl like you doing here, anyway?
Huh? Are you blind or something?
What's that letter?
None of your business. You didn't love Mary anyway.
Wait! How do you know Mary's name?
James next sees her at a bowling alley, where he spies Laura talking to one of the other characters, Eddie, a young, overweight man. This is significant in that this is the only time in the game where two people who are not James are having a conversation, and their topic is significant.
So what'd you do? Robbery? Murder?
Nah, nothing like that.
Huh, you're just a gutless fatso.
What'd you have to say that for?
I thought you said the cops were after you.
No, I just ran because I was scared. I don't know what the cops are doing.
But if you did something bad, why don't you just say you were sorry? Well, I guess I run away a lot too.
It's no good. They wouldn't listen. Nobody will ever forgive me. Did you find the lady you're looking for? What's her name? Mary?
James has already met Eddie at this point back in the apartments, something we'll detail when we get to his section. Laura runs away when James bursts in, and James accosts Eddie for allowing a little girl to run around in a town full of monsters. James follows Laura to the hospital at Maria's behest, and after Maria stops to rest in one of the rooms, he goes on alone to discover the little girl playing with teddy bears.
Laura?
Huh? You know my name?
Eddie told me.
That big fat blabbermouth.
How do you know about Mary?
What's the big deal?
Why can't you just tell me?
You gonna yell at me if I don't?
No, I won't.
I was friends with Mary. We met at the hospital. It was last year.
You liar! Laura,
Fine, don't believe me.
But last year, Mary was already... I'm sorry, Laura. Anyway, let's go. We can talk about this later. This is no place for a kid. There are all sorts of strange things around here. I can't believe you haven't even gotten a scratch on you.
Why should I? Wait! There's something I gotta get.
Later, okay?
But it's really important.
What is it?
A letter from Mary.
Huh?
I wanna go get it. Is that okay?
Yes.
Come on, hurry up.
Is it in there?
Yeah, in the back.
What are you doing, Laura?
It's further back in the desk.
Laura! What are you doing?
Ha ha, I tricked you.
Open the door, Laura.
Why should I? I'm a liar, right? Want me to open it? Huh? Do ya? What's the magic word?
Laura?
Okay, I guess I won't open it. I think I'll just leave you like this.
You snotty little brat! Open up!
Why, you...
Laura?
You fuckers!
James is knocked unconscious and awakens in an alternate, dilapidated form of the hospital, and then reunites with Maria. After Pyramid Head kills Maria for the first time, James catches a glimpse of Laura running into the fog, prompting him to follow. Laura isn't seen again until James reaches the Lakeview Hotel.
Did I scare you?
Yeah, you did.
You're here to find Mary, aren't you, James? Well, have you?
No. Is that why you're here too?
She's here, isn't she? If you know where she is, tell me. I'm tired of walking.
I wish I knew.
But she said it in her letter.
What letter?
Wanna read it? But don't tell Rachel, okay?
Who's Rachel?
She was our nurse. I took it from her locker.
Laura, how old are you?
I turned 8 last week.
So, Mary couldn't have died 3 years ago. Could she really be here? Is this the quiet, beautiful place she was talking about?
Me and Mary talked a lot about Silent Hill. She even showed me all her pictures. She really wanted to come back. That's why I'm here. Maybe you'll get it if you see the other letter. The one Mary... Huh? I must have dropped it.
Laura!
I gotta find it.
Laura!
After viewing the videotape that he and Mary had left behind, James is contemplating the truth of his repressed memories, and then he is found by Laura again.
So there you are, James. Did you get the letter? Did you find Mary? If not, let's get going already, okay?
Laura. Mary's gone. She's dead.
Liar, that's a lie!
No, that's not true.
She died because she was sick?
No, I killed her.
You killer! Why'd you do it? I hate you! I want her back! Give her back to me! I knew it! You didn't care about her! I hate you, James! I hate you! I hate you! I hate you! She was always waiting for you. Why? Why?
I'm sorry. The Mary you know isn't here.
After this scene, Laura is not seen again unless the player achieves the leave ending. There are a few key actions one must take in order to get this. First, the player must examine the letter from Mary that James has been carrying since the beginning of the game. This item stays in James's inventory during the whole game and can be examined multiple times, as it should be in order to assure this ending. It's worth noting the fact that late in the game, examining the note again reveals a blank piece of paper. There never was a letter written by Mary asking James to come to Silent Hill. He made it up in his head. Or was it the town's influence? James must also keep his health meter high throughout the course of the game, consuming items to keep his health from going too low, demonstrating a desire to live. Also necessary for this ending is listening to a lengthy conversation between Mary and James, a memory that plays as James walks through a long hallway towards the hotel rooftop. The player can ignore this conversation if they run quickly through the hall before the dialogue is finished, but in order to get the leave ending, they need to listen to the whole audio. After fulfilling these tasks, James has demonstrated his devotion to Mary and his remorse for killing her. When he reaches the hotel rooftop for this ending, he discovers Maria dressed as Mary, and he confronts her, telling her he doesn't need her anymore. She transforms into a monster and James is forced to kill her. In the cinematic that follows, James finds himself in Mary's sick room.
James.
Forgive me.
I told you that I wanted to die, James. I wanted the pain to end.
That's why I did it, honey. I just couldn't watch you suffer. No. That's not true. You also said you didn't want to die. The truth is, I hated you. I wanted you out of the way. I wanted my life back.
James, if that were true, then why do you look so sad?
Mary?
James. Please. Please do something for me. Go on with your life.
Mary's letter is read aloud again, this time over a shot of the cemetery outside Silent Hill. It should be noted that the same letter is read aloud over 3 out of the 4 possible endings, taking on a different meaning with each scenario. As the reading ends, we see Laura walk confidently through the cemetery, followed by James, and together they walk into the distance until they are swallowed by the fog. Leave is considered by many to be the closest to a definitive ending for the game. James has faced his actions, committed to atoning for his sins, and finds redemption in the innocent girl who also came to find Mary. Since they are leaving together, it's reasonable to assume that James intends to adopt Laura in the same way that Mary had intended to. Or had she? Considering the manifestations of the town and the fact that Mary's letter turns out to be a blank piece of paper by the end of the game, it's very possible that Laura's letter was also blank. Something for James to see what he, or maybe the town, wanted him to see. Laura represents moving on, similarly to how Maria did. But with Laura, James sees a piece of his late wife and the little girl, the daughter that they'd never gotten the chance to have together. According to the developers, Laura is a real person who came to the town, hinting that she'd hitched a ride with Eddie. The official novelization of the game follows Laura for a brief segment, seeing the town through her eyes. But this shouldn't stop us from considering that Laura is a manifestation of the town. After all, Maria told James multiple times that she was real and had a personality and memories of her own. Laura is also presented as an 8-year-old girl who somehow left the hospital she was staying in and found her way to this abandoned town and is running around happy-go-lucky without a care. Even if we accept that Eddie gave her a ride into town, it still doesn't explain how a child so young could possibly have reached this place by herself without any other means. And let us consider Laura's role, drawing James deeper and deeper into the town to uncover the truth of his sins. Where Maria is happy to distract James and take him away from Mary. Laura's actions throughout the story are the catalyst for him to continue. She kicks the key out of his reach at the apartments, forcing him to find a new way around and encounter Pyramid Head. When she leaves both the bowling alley and the hospital, James follows her. Inside the hospital, it is here where James is first forced to consider that perhaps Mary hasn't been dead for as long as he'd thought. And after this, Laura locks him in a room with monsters that forces him again to confront Pyramid Head. This culminates at the hotel, where her words push James towards the truth, and her letter implies that Mary would have wanted to adopt this young girl. Finally, she judges him after viewing the tape, saying she hates him and that he never loved Mary. She wants Mary back, and if James finds the leave ending, it turns out that he does too, but he can't have her. So the spark of redemption, this 8-year-old girl, will have to suffice. Except she is just as false as the rest of the manifestations of the town, a fake promise of hope and happiness. James might believe he has found redemption, but at what cost? Notably, in the ending cutscene, Laura is the one leading James as they leave the town, as she has been leading him the entire game. For our next examination, it has to be stated that there is a content warning for physical and sexual abuse as well as suicide. Part of why Silent Hill 2 is so memorable is that it does not shy away from delicate subjects, but also does not present these subjects as bluntly as many entries in horror are wont to do. Utilizing symbolism and a show-don't-tell quality, this next story is one that the game trusts the audience to infer, but with enough detail as to make what is unsaid unmistakable. So, in order to understand the true meaning behind the in-water ending, we look to examine the story and interactions with the first character James meets on his journey, Angela Orozco. As James enters the outskirts of Silent Hill, he cuts through a cemetery off the main road. Here, he surprises Angela, who is sitting in front of a headstone, lost in thought.
Excuse me,
I'm sorry. I
No,
was
it's
just...
okay. I didn't mean to scare you. I'm kind of lost.
Lost?
Yeah. I'm looking for Silent Hill. Is this the right way?
Yeah. It's hard to see with this fog, but there's only the one road. You can't miss it.
Thanks.
But
Yes?
I think you'd better stay away. This town, there's something wrong with it. It's kind of hard to explain, but
Is it dangerous?
maybe. And it's not just the fog either.
Okay, I got it. I'll be careful.
I'm not lying.
No, I believe you. It's just, I guess I really don't care if it's dangerous or not. I'm going to town either way.
But why?
I'm looking for someone.
Who is it?
Someone very important to me. I'd do anything if I could be with her again.
Me too. I'm looking for my mama. I mean my mother. It's been so long since I've seen her. I thought my father and brother were here, but I can't find them either. I'm sorry. It's not your problem.
I hope you find them.
Yeah, you too.
When they next meet, Angela has undergone a radical change. While searching through the apartment complex, James enters a room to discover Angela lying on the floor in front of a full-length mirror, holding a kitchen knife.
Oh, it's you.
Yeah, I'm James.
Angela.
Angela, okay, I don't know what you're planning, but there's always another way.
Really? But you're the same as me. It's easier just to run. Besides, is what we deserve.
No, I'm not like you.
Are you afraid? I'm sorry.
It's okay. Did you find your mother?
Not yet. She's not anywhere.
Did she live in this apartment building?
I don't know.
So, all you know is she lived in this town.
What did you say? How do you know that?
Well, I just figured, 'cause this is where you're looking for her. How else would I know?
Yeah.
Am I right?
I'm so tired.
So, why did you come to this town anyway?
I'm sorry. Did you find the person you're looking for?
Not yet. Her name's Mary. She's my wife.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Anyway, she's dead. I don't know why I think she's here.
She's dead?
Don't worry. I'm not crazy. At least, I don't think so.
I've got to find my mama.
Should I go with you? This town's dangerous. Now I know what you meant back there in the cemetery.
I'll be okay by myself. Besides, I'd just slow you down.
What about that?
Will you hold it for me?
Sure. No problem.
If I kept it, I'm not sure what I might do. I'm sorry. I've been bad. Please don't.
James takes the knife and holds it in his inventory for the rest of the game. It is also worth noting that the knife cannot be used as a weapon in-game, only as an item to be examined. Angela appears again in the underground prison labyrinth. Walking down a hallway, James finds scattered newspapers all over the ground, and if examined, reveal a news story about a lumberjack named Thomas Orozco, who was found in his family home, stabbed to death. As he moves onward, James hears Angela screaming.
Daddy!
James comes to Angela's aid and kills the monster.
Are you okay? Angela, relax.
Don't order me around!
I'm not trying to order you.
So what do you want then? Oh, I see. You're trying to be nice to me, right? I know what you're up to. It's always the same. You're only after one thing.
No, that's not true at all.
You don't have to lie. Go ahead and say it. Or you could just force me. Beat me up like he always did. You only care about yourself anyway. You disgusting pig.
Angela.
Don't touch me! You make me sick. You said your wife Mary was dead, right?
Yes. She was ill.
Liar! I know about you. You didn't want her around anymore. You probably found someone else.
That's ridiculous. I never...
Angela's final appearance is in the Lakeview Hotel. James enters a hallway that is engulfed in flames. Something odd, as the previous area had been flooded and water damaged.
I was looking for you. Now you're the only one left. Maybe then I can rest. Mama, why are you running away? You're not my mama. It's you. Oh. I'm sorry.
Angela, no.
Thank you for saving me. But I wish you hadn't. Even Mama said it. I deserved what happened.
No, Angela, that's wrong.
No, don't pity me. I'm not worth it. Or maybe you think you can save me. Will you love me? Take care of me? Heal all my pain? That's what I thought. James, give me back that knife.
No, I won't.
Saving it for yourself?
Me? No, I'd never kill myself. It's hot as hell in here.
You see it too. For me, it's always like this.
As Angela ascends into the inferno, this is the last that we see of her in the game. Angela's knife is a key item for receiving the in-water ending of the game. James must examine the knife in his inventory at least once in order to trigger the potential of the ending, more times to ensure it. James must also let his health meter run into the red, staying at a fairly consistent and dangerous level close to death. This shows James's lack of care whether he's alive or not, which falls in line with the suicidal implications of Angela's knife. Maintaining a good distance from Maria and listening to the audio cues from Mary in the hotel are important. There's also a diary on the roof of Brookhaven Hospital, detailing the suicidal thoughts of a former patient there that must be read. If these conditions are met, in water will happen. On the hotel rooftop, James discovers Maria dressed as Mary. Just like with Leave, he tells Maria that he's done with her, causing her to transform into a monster, and he kills her. Once this happens, James finds himself next to Mary's sickbed.
Mary?
James.
Forgive me.
I told you that I wanted to die, James. I wanted the pain to end.
That's why I did it, honey. I just couldn't watch you suffer. No. That's not the whole truth. You also said that you didn't want to die. The truth is, part of me hated you for taking away my life.
You killed me, and you're suffering for it. It's enough, James.
Mary?
James.
The screen turns black. We can hear the sound of footsteps and a car door open and shut. James speaks aloud, a monologue, saying that he finally understands why he came to this town, wondering why he was so afraid to face it. In the background, the engine kicks over, revving to high speed. James admits that without Mary, he has nothing. The car is heard speeding down the road, growing louder and louder with intensity before it abruptly cuts to silence. Mary, James says, now we can be together. Mary's letter is once more read aloud, but this time over an underwater scene. Light from the surface can be seen. Air bubbles rise past. It appears as though James has taken Mary's body back to his car and driven into the lake. There's no sight of him leaving, no further words from him, only the somber silence of the water and implication that James, after all of his confidence that he would never kill himself, has finally gone and done just that. It's one of the darkest and most melancholy endings to a video game ever written. Now, we have to examine the ties that Angela has to In Water and what presents the notion that she is a fictional manifestation of the town, rather than a real person. Firstly, it should go without saying that the theme of suicide is the most obvious tie. Angela wants to kill herself rather than face the trauma of her past, and so does James. One of the implications hammered home over and over is that Mary was verbally abusive towards James near the end of her illness, something she addresses in her letter at the end of the game. She understands what she's done to him, and that he may hate her for it. James, for his part, admits that part of him killed her because he hated her, because he wanted his life back. Angela, too, did the same thing, only for her it was an act of survival. We can easily come to the conclusion that her father was physically and sexually abusing her, based on the creature designs and by Angela's words. The sexual nature of the room, where James fights the monster that attacks her, with the pistons pumping in and out of the fleshy walls, brings this to a point. Killing her father, much like James killing his wife, caused a break in her psyche. Wandering through Silent Hill to find her mama, a source of matronly solace, is the opposite of James searching searching for his own wife, a woman who never had the chance to be a mother. Reflections and opposites are what define the relationship between James and Angela, and I believe seals the notion that she is a manifestation. James has blonde hair, Angela dark brown. James wears a dark gray polo under a green jacket with blue jeans. Angela wears a light gray turtleneck and red pants. When James and Angela meet in the apartments, most of their conversation takes place in a reflection. As she lies on the floor in front of a full-length mirror, the camera primarily focuses on her, with James captured in the reflection. One shot in particular is telling. The camera looks down from the ceiling, Angela on the right, her reflection on the left, taking up equal sides of the screen. Before this scene, it's worth noting that Pyramid Head, James's own personal punisher, has been seen carrying no weapons whatsoever. But after Angela hands over the knife to James, when we next see Pyramid Head, it is possessing a blade so large, it has to drag the knife behind it. It's even referred to as the Great Knife. Angela provided James with more fuel for his own punishment, just as Laura led him closer to the hidden truth, just as Maria tried to pull him away from it. For most of the game, James sees the town as water damaged. He sees wet environments, dripping water. The theme of water is present throughout the course of the game, except for one glaring instance, Angela's hallway of fire. For her, the world is always aflame, burning. The heat of her trauma a constant reminder. James, on the other hand, is always surrounded by water and drowning. At the end of their stories, when each of them decide to commit suicide, Angela does so by walking upwards into the flames, and James goes downward into the water. James has spent most of the game staunchly denying any desire or ability to commit suicide, but Angela has always known. In fact, she's embraced it. They are opposites in every capacity, down to gender identity, which is particularly of note in that Angela is the only female identifying member of the cast who has no relation to Mary. When we first meet James, he is introduced to us staring at his reflection in a dirty bathroom mirror. And when James and Angela first meet, she attempts to warn him away, to not go into the town, but James's reaction is exactly the opposite. He's going to the town to find what he wants, danger or no. Somewhere, a part of him was trying to get him to turn around, to run away, and that piece manifested in Angela's words. It should also be noted that the game's creators have confirmed that from the opening of the game, Mary's body is in James's car, in the back seat. Her death is incredibly recent, within the last couple of days, or even hours. Perhaps James brought her here with the intention of committing suicide the entire time, having succumbed to the trauma of killing her. But even if the evidence of opposites and reflections in the two characters had not been enough to convince you of their relation to each other, consider this. In the first 3 Silent Hill games, the first and third games feature a portrait of the main character on the front box art. Silent Hill 2, the face on the cover is Angela's. Up until this point, it's been a relatively easy task to link the previous 3 characters to the endings of Silent Hill 2. Showing the relation of Eddie Dombrowski to the hidden Rebirth ending is a little more difficult considering both his story and the events necessary to unlock this ending. And yet there is enough compelling evidence to demonstrate how this seemingly buffoonish man is essential to understanding the final ending to Silent Hill 2. We've previously established that James first comes across Eddie in the apartment complex. James enters one of the apartments to discover Eddie, a portly 20-something in an ill-fitting polo shirt and backwards cap, hunched over a toilet, violently throwing up. I'll spare you the sound of this cinematic. Eddie found a corpse inside of a fridge out in the living room after being chased in by some of the monsters, and in a panic he became nauseous at the sight of it. In this difficult-to-stomach cutscene, Eddie continues to vomit while James talks to him. Eddie adamantly proclaims his innocence in regards to the dead body, claiming that he didn't do it and that he's not from Silent Hill. James oddly continues to converse with Eddie calmly, as though he's ignoring the man's explosive vomit. He asks Eddie if he's friends with Pyramid Head. Confused, Eddie says he doesn't know what that is, only that he's seen some monsters that have freaked him out thus far. James infers that something brought Eddie to Silent Hill, but whatever that is, he should try to leave town as soon as possible. Both men tell each other to be careful before James leaves Eddie to finish his business. Next, Eddie shows up again at the Bowl-O-Rama, as previously mentioned in the Laura section. Somehow he's gotten a hold of some pizza, which he gladly chows down on while Laura sits beside him in conversation. Again, this is tellingly the only conversation in the game that James is not a part of, nor does it exist for his benefit in the game. It's only for the player to engage with and understand.
So what'd you do? Robbery? Murder?
Nah, nothing like that.
Huh, you're just a gutless fatso.
What'd you have to say that for?
I thought you said the cops were after you.
No, I just ran because I was scared. I don't know what the cops are doing.
But if you did something bad, why don't you just say you were sorry? Well, I guess I run away a lot too.
It's no good. They wouldn't listen. Nobody will ever forgive me. Did you find the lady you're looking for? What's her name? Mary?
Eddie?
Oh, you're...
James. We met in the apartment building?
Yeah, I remember. But,
Are you alone here, Eddie?
no.
Bye-bye.
Wait! Come back! Eddie, let's go after her.
Huh? Laura? But why?
Laura. Is that her name?
That's what she said.
This town is full of monsters. How can you sit there and eat pizza?
She said she was fine by herself. She said a fatso like me would just slow her down.
Forget you.
Later, after James descends into the underground prison, Eddie appears once more. This time, however, his aloof demeanor has been replaced with a chilling lack of empathy.
Killing a person ain't no big deal. Just put the gun to their head. Pow.
You killed him?
But it wasn't my fault. He made me do it.
Calm down, Eddie. Tell me what happened.
That guy, he had it coming. I didn't do anything. He just came after me. Besides, he was making fun of me with his eyes, like that other one.
Just for that, you killed him?
What do you mean, just for that?
Eddie, you can't just kill someone because of the way they looked at you.
Oh yeah? Why not? Till now I always let people walk all over me. Just like that stupid dog. He had it coming too.
Eddie?
I was just joking, James. He was dead when I got here, honest. Anyway, I gotta run.
You're going out there alone?
Yeah.
Eddie?
Eddie's final appearance comes just before the end of the prison.
Eddie? What are you doing?
What does it look like? He always busted my balls. You fat, disgusting piece of shit. You make me sick. Fat ass, you're nothing but a waste of skin. You're so ugly, even your mama don't love you. Well, maybe he was right. Maybe I am nothing but a fat, disgusting piece of shit. But you know what? It doesn't matter if you're smart, dumb, ugly, pretty. It's all the same once you're dead. And the corpse can't laugh. From now on, if anyone makes fun of me, I'll kill him. Just like that.
Eddie, have you gone nuts?
I knew it. You too. You're just like him, James.
Hey, I didn't mean anything.
Don't bother. I understand. You've been laughing at me all along, haven't you? Ever since we first met. I'll kill you, James!
After the cutscene, the player takes over, forced to fight Eddie, and after a few minutes of action, Eddie retreats deeper into the meat locker. The next room where Eddie has retreated is dark, foggy with cold air, and full of large meat slabs hanging from the ceiling. The meats are all wearing pants. James proceeds cautiously as Eddie taunts him from the shadows.
Picked on, spit on, just 'cause of the way you look? After you've been laughed at your whole friggin' life? That's why I ran away after I killed the dog. Ran away like a scared little girl. Yeah, I killed that dog. It was fun. It tried to chew its own guts out. Finally died all curled up in a ball. Then he came after me. I shot him too, right in the leg. He cried more than the dog. He's gonna have a hard time playing football on what's left of that knee.
You think it's okay to kill people? You need help, Eddie.
Don't get all holy on me, James. This town called you too. You and me are the same. We're not like other people. Don't you know that? Let's party!
After a second battle, this time, once enough hits are landed, James kills Eddie.
Eddie? Eddie? I killed a human being. A human being.
From here, James leaves the prison and proceeds to the hotel. What's interesting about Eddie's story is how similarly it follows James. While Mary did not bully James over his looks, she did verbally abuse him over a long period of time before he finally gave in to his torment and killed her. So, too, did Eddie, spent years being tortured verbally by those around him, by the football player in particular, just because of his weight. Over a period of time, this harsh treatment turned the mild boy into a violent man, finally giving in to his fury and killing the bully's dog before shooting the bully in the knee. This is the event that Eddie was referring to in his conversation with Laura, saying that no one would ever forgive him for what he'd done. James no doubt felt much the same way after killing Mary. James laments his actions, aghast that he has killed a human being. Turns out that Eddie is not his first murder, nor is it the only one done in self-defense. After all, with years of abuse stacked up, James wanted his life back and to not feel hurt anymore. In self-defense of his own emotions and life, he killed Mary, convincing himself that it was to end her pain as well as his. But unlike the other three characters we've examined, James's interactions with Eddie do not directly lead to one of the game's 4 endings. Rebirth is not an ending one can even achieve on the first playthrough of the game. It is only on starting up a new game, after completing the story once, can the player discover the necessary items to unlock Rebirth. There are 4: the White Chrism, the Book of Lost Memories, the Obsidian Goblet, and the Book of the Crimson Ceremony. Each of these items are found in locations scattered across Silent Hill, and without all 4, the Rebirth ending will not occur. If all of them are in James's possession, it will not matter what he did during the course of the game, or what ending was being led up to. Rebirth will take over, assuming James has been pursuing this course of action all along. As usual, James will find himself on the rooftop of the hotel, confront Maria disguised as Mary, battle her, and kill her. But then the player is treated to something unusual out of these endings. There is no scene of reconciliation with Mary on her deathbed. Mary's letter is not read aloud. Instead, once Maria has been killed, the game fades into James rowing his boat across Toluca Lake through the fog, with what appears to be Mary's body in the boat.
Mary, you look so peaceful. Forgive me for waking you. But without you, I just can't go on. I can't live without you, Mary. This town, Silent Hill. The old gods haven't left this place. And they still grant power to those who venerate them. Power to defy even death. Ah, Mary.
What's chilling about this ending are the implications. First, the powers of the town are not simply metaphoric or metaphysical, but extend beyond the veil of the natural world. The first Silent Hill dealt with the cult who lived in the town and their obsession with the old gods, but Silent Hill 2 chooses to focus more on the psychological horror of the town and the effects on the mind. While each of the monsters in the second game have horrific visuals, it can all be traced back to the trauma impacting James from his time during Mary's last days. Even Pyramid Head is explained through a painting found in the Historical Society of an executioner that bears the creature's image. But here, with this ending, Silent Hill 2 at last announces the connection to the first game in the sense of the old gods and the dark forces that inhabit the town. James is now crossing those lines, once a victim of them in his mind, now rising to understanding how to manipulate those powers to his benefit, if he venerates the old gods. Now secondly, this ending implies that James has been on this journey more than once. We can infer this from the simple fact that the ending can only be unlocked after any one of the previous endings that have been seen. There's also the disturbing evidence left behind in the shape of the various bodies James finds along his journey. Both in the streets of Silent Hill and in the apartment complex, James finds bodies that wear clothing eerily similar to his own. Black shoes, blue jeans, green jacket. Except the faces are bloodied and torn apart as to be unrecognizable. We could, of course, posit that this is just the town's way of predicting James's fate in the same way that interacting with Angela does. In fact, there are multiple ways in which the town predicts James's demise. One of them is found inside Bar Neely's. A message written in what looks like blood reads, "There was a hole here. It's gone now." Later, when James returns to the bar after leaving the hospital, there's a second message beside it. "If you really want to see Mary, you should just die, but you might be heading to a different place than Mary, James." In multiple, subtle ways, the town is directing James towards one of multiple conclusions. It creates Maria and pushes her in front of him as a means to have back a form of the woman he's lost. It creates Laura, who would have been Mary's adopted child with Blessing, and with whom Mary implies she wants James to find a reason to move on. It creates Angela, whose state of mind reflects his torment, who James sees is prepared to die and he takes inspiration from. But it also creates Eddie, and Eddie's answer denies all three other routes. Once Eddie's method is chosen, the route which leads to a resurrection, then the story still unfolds but refuses any other conclusion, because the women in the game are there to add to James's torment, to force him to face his past and come to the conclusion of how best his punishment must be meted out. But Eddie, the only other male-identifying presence in the game, represents what James has been doing before the events of the game: denial. Eddie changes his story about his past multiple times. When we first meet him, he's vomiting, cowering, appears weak and harmless, and denies doing any harm to the body in the next room. Next, he's having a pity party while confessing to Laura, however slightly, that he would be unwelcome by others after what he'd done. Again, remember, this is the only conversation in the game that doesn't involve James. Laura, the icon of acceptance, and Eddie, the icon of denial. Eddie's denial deepens in the prison when he claims that killing a person ain't no big deal, but then jokingly assures James that he was just kidding about causing violence. But his denial only goes so far. In our final meeting, Eddie has accepted the violence he's caused, but he focuses the blame on those around him who made fun of him, who had it coming too. Eddie has been hurt. His anger is justifiable, but his methods are not. It is extremely telling that the slabs of meat hanging from their hooks are all wearing pants, just like humans would. Eddie has been pushed psychologically to the point where he sees the people around him as little more than meat. He understands what humans are capable of, and he's reached the point where he refuses to sit back and take it anymore. His gun, an oversized revolver, is symbolic of his power. James, too, has been pushed to the point of retaliation, but he still denies himself the truth. Just like Eddie in the beginning, James is constantly pushed further and further into the realization that he has killed Mary, that he has done wrong, and that he must come to terms with it. In 3 endings, He faces this wrong. In the final ending, he simply denies the wrongdoing. He's been through this before, but now he's searched through his mind and come to the conclusion that he was justified in his actions. How can that be? Well, James has searched through the town on his quest for redemption. He has searched high and low and discovered certain things about the history of the town that he did not understand before, books and information on certain items of mystical power. So perhaps when he eventually reaches his conclusion as to what he feels his actions require, a second thought forms in his mind. Perhaps he makes it all the way back to the parking lot where he left his car and Mary's body behind. Maybe Laura is with him, or Maria is with him, or he goes to drive into the lake. And as he does so, he thinks, this doesn't feel right. This isn't what I deserve. Because he just wants Mary. He can't go on without her, but now he understands how to get her back. So he turns around and heads back to town, but the town wants him to feel it all over again. He has to earn his wife back. And as the town resets all the players and pieces, it knows it will get what it really wants. A new servant. Someone willing to perform rituals to the old gods that have not been performed in far too long. And James, calm, peaceful, finally comes to terms with himself as he rows out to the island where the ritual must take place. One more point that makes this ending more plausible is that the 4 items necessary for the rebirth ending aren't just throwaway items placed solely for the purpose of unlocking a secret. Team Silent went out of their way to place clues that this has been James's intent all along. In the prison, James can find a picture labeled the White and Crimson Ceremony, which the player can see has men dressed in priestly robes of white and red. References to the white mist and crimson gods are scattered throughout the town. Implications of resurrection and metamorphosis lie everywhere. One room in the apartments is filled with butterflies. Maria has a tattoo of a butterfly on her hip, and both Mary and Maria in their final boss form use butterflies to attack James and overwhelm him. But in the Born from a Wish scenario, we get our biggest connection to the rebirth ending. As Maria investigates Ernest's mansion, she needs to solve a puzzle to get a key out of a gravestone using 3 plates. One with the white chrism embossed on it, one with the obsidian goblet over it, and the third one with the Book of the Crimson Ceremony. Placing the 3 plates over one another in the proper order releases the key from the gravestone, a release from death. And Ernest himself begs Maria to bring him a bottle of white liquid, what appears to be the white chrism, which is found over in the apartments next to the mansion, in the same apartment that James will eventually find it, but certainly not on his first try. Why doesn't James find it on his first journey? Because Maria found it and moved it first. Another manipulation of the town, preventing James from enacting his dream of resurrecting Mary. He still needs to work for it, earn his wife back. And Ernest implies that he wants the white chrism in order to bring his dead daughter back to life. I would go so far as to say that James, in his first visit with Mary, learned more about the town's history and rituals than we've been led on to believe. His break from reality began the moment that he decided he was going to smother his wife in a selfish bid to be free from the awful ugliness of their lives. He couldn't be with her, but he couldn't be without her. The letter from Mary, the desire to be with her again, the confirmation that Mary's body is in the back seat of James's car, all lead to the conclusion that he killed her with the sole intention of bringing her back to Silent Hill to enact this ritual, to rid her of her sickness, and eventually be together again. Because when you can resurrect someone, killing a person ain't no big deal. In video games, sometimes there are multiple endings one can achieve based on their actions during their playthrough, just like in Silent Hill 2. But oftentimes, the developer will state outright which of the endings is the true ending or the correct ending, so players can have a sense of satisfaction knowing how the story definitively ends. However, in Silent Hill 2, every ending is considered canon. Developers Team Silent have stated that it's up to the players to determine which ending out of the possible 4 is how James Sunderland's story actually ends. There are, of course, 2 joke endings that the developers wisely have ensured remain in the realm of satire, leaving us to wonder and marvel at how one game can present so much ambiguity while still remaining a concrete experience. This is what we know. If all endings are canon, if it's truly up to the player, then anything goes. This video, after all, is one big fan theory. At no point have the developers ever hinted that anyone other than Maria is not a real human. The official novelization shows backstory for some of the characters and even goes into their heads. Based on this, why extrapolate information to support a theory that has obviously been shown to be quite the opposite? Because, and here's the fun part, Silent Hill has always been a series about misdirection, illusion, hallucinations both visual and audio, and also concealed intention. Disguises abound in Silent Hill in each game. Team Silent demonstrated that Maria is absolutely not a real person by any means, but still thinks and feels like one, and has memories because the town created her to have them. She's presented as the only person in the game who understands who James is, what he's done, and her role in the story. It stands to reason that the town could have created these other characters, but simply not given them the awareness of their role to play. And, as I have hopefully detailed well enough, the compelling evidence linking them both to the town and to James is unmistakable and undeniable. Whether or not you kids choose to support this theory yourself, well, there are many endings to this tale, just as all of them are equally correct in their canon. But the next time you play Silent Hill 2, perhaps you'll be invited to look a little closer, pay attention a bit harder, consider ideas that you hadn't considered before. One of the most beautiful things about this abstract masterpiece is that it opens itself to observation as well as deduction, and when a game this detailed and well thought out is kind enough to allow for this, it is only good of us to indulge. I appreciate you kids coming along on this ride with me. This theory has been gestating in my mind ever since I first played the game 20 years ago, and it has stuck with me ever since. It's a damn shame that it's incredibly difficult to find a playable copy of Silent Hill 2, either on PC or on older consoles, and that there is really no way to play it on modern machines or consoles these days. But Silent Hill 2 stands the test of time. Again, a masterpiece of both horror and of video games in general. A game like this comes along once in a blue moon, and for 20 years, it has still held up and demonstrated why it has achieved such revered status. Hope you kids have enjoyed this video, and I hope that the next time you play a horror game of any kind, you're invited to look a little closer at everything going on. Meanwhile, go drink some water, sit up straight, and give your mom a hug. She probably needs one. We'll see you next time.